Currently we are in section 3 and we are about to check out the 8th video of this section. So in this video we will learn how to create a form, how to use text form field, and also how to add a validator for displaying the validation error message. So we will implement the form with validation in 3 step-by-step process. So our first step will be to create a form with a global key. To use a form, we will just convert our current user interface into the form. So instead of using the container as a root element or the root widget, we will now use a form. Let me show you this slide. So this was the initial UI breakdown. So the outermost widget was the material app, which contains the scaffold widget, and as a body of the scaffold earlier we had container. Now we are going to replace the container by a form. As simple as that. So within our application, let us make the required changes. Instead of container, just use form. And we are pretty done. And now the form widget does not contain margin as a property, so I will right now comment it. But we have to somehow give margin to our form widget. So for that, what we can do, let us wrap our list view in a child widget. So after the form, we will have child as padding. Now the padding will further have a child of list view, and in the end make sure to use the closing bracket for our padding right after the list view here. Once you do it, you will find padding hint here. So everything is now fine. And then within the padding, let us define our padding. Cut this part and paste it here and remove this margin. Now our code needs some proper formatting, so simply press Alt Command L in Mac or Alt Control L on Windows. Once you do it, all the lines will be formatted as per the Dart convention. So now we have form in place, let us define its global key. So within our form state, let us define our var underscore form key. And on the right, let us use our global key, which is actually of the generic type. Here I will pass the form state. Now notice here that I am simply using the superclass of form state. I am not using the simple interest form state here. Now this form key will act as a key for our form. So right after this, let us define a property of key and pass form key. Now you might think what this key is all about. Well, in future we will use this key to identify our form instance. So using this key we will get the current status of our form. So with this we have completed our first step. Now let us come to our second step. Add the text form field with some validation logic. So down below here we have our principal text field. So all you have to do is, instead of using text field, use text form field, and you are done. Now this text form field enables us to apply the validation layer on our text field. So here what we can do, as a property, use the validator and then define a function which receives the user input as a parameter in this function. And there you can write your own validation logic. For example, if the user input is empty, then you can return a message. Please enter principal amount. So this completes our second step as well. So our next step will be to use the button to validate and submit the form. So here we are going to use our calculate button to submit the form and also validate the result. So down below within our raised button of calculate, on press of this button we can use if. Let us use our global form key, that is underscore form key. So when we are using this form key, we are actually referring to the form in which it is present. And this key is basically unique across the entire application. So using this key you can identify which form you are talking about. Then use the current state of the form and then call the validate function. Now this function validate will simply return true if the validation passes. That is, the user input meets our requirement. Well, I guess I have to put it within the setState function. and then enclose this statement within this if statement. Perfect. So if the user input is valid, then only calculate the total returns. So with this we have completed our step number 3 as well. Run the application, click on calculate button. So there we go, our validation layer got activated and we got a red box here. Along with this we got a message, please enter principal amount. Now if you notice, our error message is not quite visible because our background is black and our error message is dark red. So let us try to change the color of our error message because it is not readable right now. Within our text form field of principal, here what we can do, within the decoration, we can add our error style and then call our text style such as color of yellow accent, and also increase the font size as it was quite not visible. Run the application, click on calculate. Perfect. Here is our error message quite visible and also the font size has increased. Now similarly let us repeat the same code for these two text field as well. So down below here for the ROI controller text field, change the text field to text form field, add the validation layer, modify the error style here as well. Now repeat the same step for our next text field as well. Finally, run the application. Click on calculate. Perfect. So our code is working perfectly fine. Now here I am just checking for if the field is empty or not. Suppose instead of entering a number in case of rate of interest, suppose user enters some text. So in that case, you can add one more condition to your validation layer. Well, I will leave it for you as an assignment. So make sure you do it. So right now our application is working perfectly fine. So with this we have completed our simple interest calculator application. Congratulations. And while creating this application, we learned a lot of things. So let us summarize what we have learned so far in this module. Well, this was a pretty long section, but we have learned a lot of things which will really help us to understand how a Flutter application works. So in this section, we first checked out what is a stateful widget. What are the differences between a stateless and the stateful widget? Proceeding, we saw how to use the event handlers within our application. And then we explored how to use drop-down button with drop-down menu items. Proceeding, we created a complete stateful application, simple interest calculator application, where we learned how to design a complex Flutter user interface and break it down into smaller pieces for better understanding. Then we used how to apply styles and themes to our application. And then we implemented event handling such as calculate and reset functionality in our application. In the end, we explored how to use forms and also form text fields and add a validation layer to it. So in this module, we learned how to create a fully functional application in Flutter. Yay! Pat your back and move on to the next section because we have a lot of interesting topics coming up.